Once you win it, and you've got to go all the way to the end.
Lando into the final corner, his first win of the championship. Lando across the line to win in China.
Because you commit yourself to such a level where there is no compromise. You give everything you have.
The strategy paid off. He had one of the best hits I've ever seen on the medium tires. Nick Valdellen wins the Monaco Grand Prix.
Deep was the final chicane. Rudy's trying to go for it on the inside. There's still both wheels of order. Megan Wills, Old School's gone round.
Oh my word!
And you need more than anything a very clear mind to understand exactly when is the moment to be aggressive, when is the moment to be calculated.
He spun. Brendan's spun.
Oh, wing image. Oh, Brendan's out.
He's out of race. Oh my God, he's out of race.
When you are under a lot of pressure, in a critical moment, in a championship or in a particular race, it's the one that can put together the combination between aggressivity and calculating things that will get the best result.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the League of Europe. We are here for round number 17 and the final round of season number 6 of the League of Europe for Division 2. Of course, my name is Jacob, taking you guys through this as always, and joined alongside me for the final time for tonight. Well, not the final time, because we have got a certain something next week, but I'll talk about that a bit later anyway. But it is, of course, the wonderful and talented, as always, Mr. Dan, aka Daka. How are you doing tonight, Dan?
Boa noite, everyone, and yes, thanks for the compliments. Hello and welcome to the final round of this Division 2 season for Season 6. It's been a long haul, and to be honest, we're gonna get things closed up in a cracking fashion. Of course, we are at the famed Interlagos circuit, the scene of many famous season enders in history. Unfortunately, we won't get a championship decider here for drivers or constructors, I believe, but hopefully we're still going to have a great spectacle, drivers taking on this track, and still a few scores to settle through the field as well.
Yeah, no, that's for certain. Obviously, yeah, Knuth took the championship last week, you know, just scoring a nice little 6th place for himself. Did manage to take that last week in the end. So, yeah, he is, of course, our Division 2 champion, as well as the Alfa Romeos taking the championship as well. Unfortunately, the Williams, they fell quite a bit short, so they're not going to be able to take the championship for the constructors anymore. So, yeah, as I said, it just kind of fell flat for those guys. But, yeah, a few other scores to settle. Like you said, you've, of course, got the one that everyone likes to call the shithousery one of Zarema and Car Mentalist for that P4 position. And technically, they're also within arm's length of Killer Blue. They can't exactly rule them out, because Killer Blue didn't exactly have the best race last week. Ended up finishing, what, in P9, I think that is. So, yeah, whereas Car Mentalist and Zarema were 2nd and 3rd. So, anything is really still to play for that 3rd place. And it just takes one bad thing for to happen to Killer Blue. And Zarema and Car Mentalist are right back within the 3rd place in the championship. Not only that, there's also a pay-per-view battle going on for P10 in the standings. Old School's are 1 with 56 points. Rudy's in 11th with 54. So the two Division 3 protagonists from last season are battling for 10th position in this grid. Matt Tibos is 51 points in 12th, and Nolan in 13th with 49 points. So all of those guys are having their own little battle for that 10th position, and I can tell there's been a lot of controversy going through it in the last within this last week, shall I say. So this is going to make this very, very interesting, to say the least. Other thing that makes this very, very interesting, there's rain in this race.
Oh, well, that does throw things in the air. I was going to mention sooner or later, Interlagos is famous for its rain. the conditions can throw up a bit of a surprise, and as it turns out, looks like we're going to get that. I'm not sure if it's the entire race, but that does throw a bit of a spanner in the works for this Grand Prix. Times are coming in now for the qualifying session. Kublai was first over the line, so we'll see how the rest of the grid is going to stack up in comparison. Kublai, who was at one point in the title fight this season, fell away a bit near the end, so he'll be hoping to try and end his season on a high note. Of course, everyone is going to be out for that as Nolan improves to a 7 flat. I'm not sure about the quality times, since we are going to be seeing rain in the race, which is probably going to slow down the quality times just a little bit setup wise, so we'll see how that unfolds. But otherwise, I think you'd be seeing times in the mid 6s possibly for pole position. But Nolan showing good pace around here. He goes fastest for the moment on a 7 flat, but you can expect the times to come down just a little bit throughout the session. All these drivers are going to go at it, and of course the main attraction is probably that pay-per-view fight for P10. Old School has held the top 10 for pretty much the entire season, but they're coming at him, and yeah, forget the title fight. That is the battle that everyone's been looking for all the way through this season.
Yeah, as I said, it's the Nolan versus Old School battle. He's had Nolan, I must admit, has been on quite some form as of recent. You know, picking up a 3rd place, a 4th place at Baku. Unfortunate DNF at Japan, where somehow the lightest tap on the wall had caused him to DNF, so I'm not too sure how that ended up coming about, but he's looking for a bit of redemption for tonight as well. And a lot of people, when it comes to Brazil, they like to say it is more of like a pad ABS track, or an ABS track to say the least. So I suppose this kind of really does favour Nolan and Killer Blue quite a bit, and I don't know, I feel like this could, as well as Mark as well, so I don't know. I really don't know how this is going to play out for tonight. I think with there being rain as well on top of that, that goes completely out of the window, and I feel like if we're really going to see anyone shine on that, it's of course the one that loves driving in the wet of Old School. He loves driving in this wet weather. Same with TDB. Both of those guys, I don't know what it is. They just love to favour the rain. It kind of reminds me of Larkin from last season. I wonder if we're going to see something similar to that Division 2 from last season.
Well, that Brazil race last season was a classic, seeing that title fight between Larkin and Matt going right down to the wire in the final race. The Alfa Romeo guys appear to be sandbagging early on. I don't believe that's the true pace of the Constructors' champions, but nevertheless they are heading around there. Old School, as you mentioned, very good in the wet. Also, though, Nolan is pretty handy in the wet, and he is currently on top at the moment. I do remember Nolan fighting for the podium in wet races such as Austria throughout the season, so he could be right up there as well. Old School is out there at the moment on a hot lap. He's getting a bit of a tow from his teammate Zaunwa, who of course finished 2nd last time out, and so on very good form himself at the moment. Old School comes over the line, goes 8th on a 7.4. Of course, qualifying pace not his trademark, but it is a trademark of TTG Slash, who looked a winner in Japan for a lot of the way. Didn't quite work out for him, but he's finding form at last near the end of the season. He just needs to put races together, full races together, and again he's showing his pace. A 6.8 is the first time in the 106s, and a comfortable lead considering it is Interlagos. So Slash going to the top then, but it should be very, very intriguing. Slash, we know, has great qualifying pace, but often this season those qualifying results haven't quite translated into the race.
No, they certainly haven't, and a few other guys also just coming across the line. Brazil is known as one of the shortest tracks on this calendar as well, so we're going to be expecting times to be very, very close to each other. I mean, even throughout the longest sets of circuits, times have been very close anyway. But with Brazil, like tracks with Brazil, like Austria, you know, they are so quick, and same with Canada. There's quite small circuits, which means that the times are going to be a lot more comparative to each other, so any margin that you can possibly build up on is going to give you, I'd say, at least a position or two. And as you can see, Knuth, our champion, is in 11th with those 107.473, and just up in front of him is Old School with a 4.61. So literally, what, 7th down to 11th, all split just under a tenth of a second. I think this could be very close in terms of qualifying. The race, however, I feel like is going to be completely different story, because as you said, a lot of guys are going to look to go for a wet setup, a lot of guys are going to look to go for a dry setup, and there's one stickler as well who I know is pretty good in the wet, and it's a man I'm spectating right now of Rudy in the Haas. You know, Silverstone, I think, is the one that instantly comes to mind, the same as Spain of last season in Division 3. Again, a bit of a collision with him and Old School, and Rudy chucks it on pole at the moment. Both of the Hasses, they did this last week as well, around Japan. Both of them putting it on pole and second position at the moment, having a very good qualifying at the beginning of this.
Yeah, two drivers with a lot of one-lap pace. There is no doubt about that. We'll see how they can convert. But yeah, Rudy, as you mentioned, that performance at Silverstone was mesmerising. He was unlucky in the end, of course, to be handed that penalty. As Nolan, out of the session there, that's just coming out of Desira del Lago, and that is huge for a man that was actually on for a snatching provisional pole before he made a mistake at Junshao on his last lap. I just caught that one. Now out of the session, and in the big pay-per-view fight, that is a definite blow for Ariel Nolan, and it opens the door for the other guys in that fight. One of them is Rudy, who is on provisional pole, to try and get through. So Nolan, he will not be a happy man, and I think he'll be hoping now to try and salvage maybe a poor man's pole position. He could be at the right lap time for that, but to Nolan, he won't try and snatch that, but if he wants to get it near pole, which I think he has the pace to do so tonight, that is not the way the McLaren driver wants to be going about it.
No, it definitely does not. Hopefully, you know, for Nolan anyway, he does manage to get himself on that poor man's pole position, or at least outside the top 10. I mean, if he's in P3 at the end of this, it doesn't really matter. And to be fair, even the poor man's pole position, it won't really matter that much either, because it's raining. So, I mean, if it it starts in the rain, then that's really going to be null and void. He's just going to hope that no one sort of gets past him in this qualifying session. If it is not raining at the beginning, then I suppose it would be a bit of a blessing in disguise, but I don't know. It's all dependent on when that rain is coming, whether it's at the start, whether it's in the middle, or towards the beginning, or towards the end. Wherever this rain is, hopefully it's sort of played more in his favour, as Hardy crosses the line with a 7.352, putting him up into P8 as well as a few other guys out on laps. Matt Tibos being one of them, down in 17th at the moment. Unfortunately has invalidated on his lap time. Killer Blue, I think I saw on the last lap, was gearing up to go for another one, and he's just now making his way up towards the line as well, keeping as tight as he can towards the pit lane. Up towards the line goes Killer Blue, and it's another one into the sixes, and it puts him up into P3. So Nolan now down into 4th, but Killer Blue up into 3rd, just completely cutting across turn 2. I think just trying to get out of the way of the McLaren behind him. But yeah, I mean, another one now into the 6.8s, but didn't manage to pit both of those Hasses in the front.
Yeah, 400ths of a second covering the top 3 at the moment. Very tight at the top of the timesheet, so there's still Rudy on that provisional pole. Old School, I'm just tracking there. He's on a pretty good lap, 3/10 up, and he is once again going to get that toe from XL Zerma. Of course, Zerma in his own fight for a potential 3rd in the standings, but Killer Blue, of course, being up in P3, does dent that a little bit. Old School to the line and improves to 6th on a 7:1. That's not bad for Old School, and he's got to try and find that time to get in front of Nolan, so we'll see what he can do later on in the session. Slash is going round invalid though, so he was unable to find more time in the end. I think the Alfa Romeo of TDB now coming up to line, a half decent lap I think, but only goes 13th at the moment. I think he was going quicker on a previous lap, but invalidated that one and threw it away. So very intriguing stuff so far. Rudy still holding down that pole position. It is pretty close though, as Iwan Bakker goes up to P5 on 0107 flat. So the times are gradually coming down here, Jack. Rudy's pole position on a 106.8, but I think even though there could be some wet setups going on, I still think that time could be threatened. And as I say that, Rudy himself has just started up a lap, so we'll see what all these guys could do as we approach the final stages of the last qualifying session of the season.
Yeah, making his way through the centre S is now DRS wide open for the Dutchman, coming up towards turn number 4. Doesn't want to do what Nolan did on the exit of that. I think if you go a little bit too wide, it gives you an invalidation and you will go around, but does that very nicely down the inside of turn 4. Now through turn 5 and up to turn 6 and 7. The uphill can catch a few guys out if you're a little bit too heavy on the throttle with it, but takes that very nicely indeed. Does the Dutchman now coming through, as I said, the tight and twisty section of Sector 2. A little bit of traffic just up in front of him, but I don't think it's going to get in as well. They're saying that Iwan Bakker almost parked on the apex. Short shift now up in the 3rd though, does the Dutchman, and a little bit of oversteer on the exit of that, but still keeps it nicely on the track. He's up by a 1/10.5 on his time, so this will put him in the 6s. However, that final corner might have just cost him that time. That was a little bit of a bad final corner from the Dutchman, and I think he might be losing out on that time that he just gained through that Sector 2. Let's have a look though. Up towards the line comes Rudy. Is it an improvement? Oh, it certainly is. He must have made a bit of a mistake on the last lap as well at that final corner, but regardless, still goes a 10.5 quicker, and Koen Blij as well moves himself up into 4th position at 107.019 as well. So the two Dutchmen of Rudy and Koen Blij moving their way up the grid. Zuidema as well, another Dutchman, up into 10th position at 7.210, just behind his teammate and just up ahead of Car Mentalist, interestingly enough, by 0.004 of a second.
A lot of intriguing matchups throughout this field, no doubt about that. Emily Tope was on a lap, and I think he's the name changer of Eloise now, but he dives to the pit lane. He started, when he joined at the beginning of last season, he was Creeko new. We've come a long way since then, there's no doubt about that. But now, with just under 5 minutes left in this session, we're going to see some of those final laps coming through now. I think the champion, TDG Knuth, he's backed off his flying lap, currently 8th on the timesheets at the moment. Hasn't had a great deal of dominance in qualifying this season. It's really been in the races where he's made up that ground. I think the next guy behind is Hardy, so we're going to have a look with the AlphaTauri man, who's been discovering a bit more pace lately. Can he put it together into results as he heads into the second sector? A little bit of understeer into the Sierra del Lago. Hangs on to it though as he heads up now, up the incline towards Ferradura. Got to try and throw it in, try and avoid running over the white line on the exit. Watch it. He just runs over it. You can see that's going to hurt him, and he is going to have to back off that lap. So XL Hardy unable quite to keep that within the lines. So he is going to have to try and maybe get back to the pits, get some tyres on and go again on his lap. But as we come down now with just under 4 minutes to go, we're going to wait a little bit, I think, before we get to see some proper times getting put on the board. But Rudy at the moment holding them in that pole 0.2 of a second nearly. It's a good margin to have at Interlagos. The question is though, will it be enough for him to hold on to that pole position, get that crucial pole position for the final race?
We shall keep an eye on that one, but I'm riding on board with a man that's trying to hold and clinch onto that 10th position of Old School. Coming up towards the end of Sector 1, he is 500ths up on his time, so this could be a bit more of an improvement from this one if he can nail this Sector 2. Of course, you've got Zuidema just coming through Sector 2 as well, so it's going to give him that little bit of a toe coming up towards the line, but he has to lift off so much, so much understeer coming up that hill, and I think that might have just hindered his time. I wonder if he is actually down on his time or if he's still managing to make any improvements. Coming through now the tight and twisty part of Sector 2, and you can see Zuidema just up in front of him. Let's have a look though. At the end of Sector 2 is Old School up on his time by 2 tenths as well, so this slipstream here could help him massively and could surge him up ahead of Nolan, potentially up ahead of Koen Blij and Killer Blue. Up towards the line comes Old School. He gets that toe from his teammate and he comes across the line and it's into P4, a 6.995 for Old School, up into 4th position, and we're going to start to see a lot more timings now start coming down, Dan, and I believe the first one to do that is going to be XL Gary.
Gary the Aston Martin, I really thought the Old School could have got more out at that time without the mistake at Ferradura. Gary to the line goes 12th on a 107.2. Get ready for some fast times coming through now. Hardy just starting up at the lap. Behind is the Mercedes. Killer Blue goes 2nd on a 106.8. So he does jump in front of Slash, but can't do any more than that. Maybe the Mercedes man is at his limit in terms of pace out there on the track. Big slipstream from the Alfa Romeos here. TDP is getting dragged to the line by Knuth. Goes 2nd, just in front of Killer by less than 100th of a second. The margin so close, and that is Eloise Division 2 at its finest. Steban goes actually up into 5th. We saw he struggled last time out in Suzuka, but a good lap there to get into the 6th. P5 at the moment. 6 drivers now under the 67-second barrier late in the session. Tebos comes up to the line, goes 6th again. He puts himself up into that 106 club. P6 on a 106.9 as it stands at the moment. And Zuidema, I think, is behind them. He is backed off a lap. Gonna go again. Car Mentalist on a flyer further back, then he pushes himself up into 9th, 7 flat, just ahead of his teammate who has beginning to slide down the order big time now. Scream just starts off a lap. Tope and behind him will continue on that lap. Is there anyone else that has the time to find out there on the circuit? Is there more time out there for anyone? I think one of the Haas drivers coming through that Slash Invalid will not find that improvement. He will have to settle for that 4th at best. To the line behind is Iwan Bakker, goes 8th in the Aston Martin. Mercedes behind is to the line. Killer Blue just getting another lap on the board, and I think that was Knuth coming through behind. He does improve, but only to 12th on a 107 flat, and another improvement. I think the smallest of improvements, a 0.003 of a second from Rudy. pushes him just a little bit further away from the rest. Does anyone else have the time to find? Kumblai comes over the line. He's backed off a lap, going to go again. 30 seconds on the clock, so get ready for the last of the lap times to come through now. Now it's Old School giving Zerba the toe in the Red Bulls then. Old School's backed off the lap. Zerba getting a nice toe. Old School goes to the inside then, to the line as Zerba crosses it, but only 14th for the Red Bull man. Is there anyone else? Emily Tope, we know the kind of quality pace that he can muster up from time to time just behind his teammate. Goes up at only 16th at the moment, just jumps Hardy in the end. Behind his Commentalist, backed off a lap then. Behind that, I think is going to be XL Gary. Can he put a lap time on the board? He is up but invalid and has to cross the line and settle for 15th then as the checkered flag falls. So get ready for the last of the times to come in. Killer Blue now behind goes to the pit lane. He has decided to have enough on that lap. TTG Slash is also backed off. Is there anyone else that can find that time? Knuth, it's not going to be to the end of this session. Kumblai is just down on his time. I'm not sure how many more lap times are out in the open air. So to the line is Kumblai. He remains in 9th place. TDB is to the pit lane. And I'm not sure if we're really going to see many more lap times, Jack. I'm just looking throughout trying to find drivers, but I think that may well just about be it for this session.
Yeah, I was just looking through all of this as well. It's just so many. I don't know how many times I was flicking through everyone, and the stream was probably seeing it as well. So many times I was just flicking through from everyone as well, but wow, oh my goodness, so many times just coming in through all of that session, and yeah, so many improvements that were made. The whole grid split by just under 7/10 of a second. Rudy though, the one chucking it on pole position, I wonder if he is running a wet setup or a dry setup, because if he's running a dry setup, this is compromising him massively. I suppose track position is important, but if you're running that dry setup and it's not exactly going to be helpful for yourself in that wet setup, you could be very, very vulnerable in this race. But TDB lining up alongside him as well. TDB starting to find a little bit more form as well. Killer Blue and Slash are the ones that are lining up right behind the two Dutchmen on the front row. Steeman in 5th position, where, as I said, I think that was a better qualifier from him this time around other than Japan. Matt Tibos in 6th, with Old School in 7th, as I said, trying to hold on to that 10th position for this for the rest of the season. Ewan Backett in 8th, Kumblai in 9th, Car Mentalist in 10th. Nolan, we was talking about him getting on the poor man's pole position. He technically has, but it's whether or not if it's raining at the beginning of this race or if it's dry at the beginning of this race, so we'll have to keep our eye out on that one. But if he is, then I suppose he's been given a bit of a lifeline with that. Knuth is in 12th, with Scream in 13th, Zardama in 14th, Gary in 15th, Tope in 16th, and Hardy in 17th at the very back of the grid. As I said, all very, very close times, and all separated just by about 6.5 tenths the entire grid. So this is going to make for a fun race. And again, if it's anything like it was last week, sorry, not last week, last season at Brazil when it was raining, well, I think we're in for a massive treat here, Dan.
It wasn't raining, but I think last week would have been a viable answer for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to point out from qualifying, 6 drivers on a 107 flat. That is just the level of competition that we have here. Heading into this race now, keep an eye out for the conditions. Oh my word, it is heavy rain. Look at that, it's torrential rain. That is going to be full wet without a doubt.
Wow.
It is chucking it down here and into Lagos, and that is a real challenge for all of the drivers. And I think that's why you saw maybe slower times in quality than you'd be expecting. You got full wet conditions, you have to be compromising that setup if you want to find that pace. And this is actually probably better for the drivers than intermediates, because it's easier to practice full wet conditions than it is intermediate conditions, so they can try and handle that just fine. The question is, how are these conditions going to evolve throughout the race? Is it going to stay wet all the way through, or are we going to see it drying up? But it does make a very unique challenge, because at Interlagos, when it's raining, a lot of so-called corners that aren't really challenges in the dry become massive obstacles in the wet. Turn 3, Jack, is one that quickly comes to mind.
Yeah, I don't know how this is going to go, because as you said, like, fast corners, they're not going to be very fast anymore, are they? They're going to have to try and take it as easy as they can, as you said, especially through turn 3, through what's the downhill, like the penultimate corner. You know, that's going to be one that you need to try and sort of feather the throttle, as well as probably feathering the brake as well. So there's a lot of differences when doing the wet running, and it's just whoever's more or less ready for it, I suppose. Because if they're not ready for it, well then they're kind of going to be well, I don't know how it's going to go. I really don't know how this is going to go. They're just going to completely mess it up, and yeah, I think this could swing so many different ways in this race, Dan. I genuinely don't know how this is going to go. I mean, as I said, a safety car can also just throw something up in the air. Why not? So, yeah, I really don't know how this race is going to go. What I do know is Rudy is pretty good in the wet conditions. TDB pretty good in the wet conditions. Those two, I think, we might see them just sort of shoot off. It's just the rest of the field of who's going to be. Well, it's basically a game of cat and mouse in that midfield.
Well, of course, being at the front is so crucial for visibility, and just being in the wake if you're behind. You have much more grip. If you're in the front, much better visibility. As I'm not sure if you've seen anything. Is that is that Slash that's gone round there, heading out of Pinarino? So yes, Slash dropping it on the outlap. That's not what you want to do, because outlaps are very important in the rain, not only to fire up the tyres, but also to try and find where the grip is and where it's not. And I think Slash has definitely learned where it isn't.
Yeah, no, certainly is. But to be fair, if you do have that little slide, it does warm up your tyres quite a bit. So I suppose there's a few goods in that, there's a few bads in that. Obviously more bads than goods, but I mean, each to their own, I suppose. But yeah, so Rudy is going to be the one that's taking us up towards the grid. TDB in second, Killer Blue in third, TTG Slash in fourth. The championship has already been decided. Constructors have already been decided. This race is really just for the rest of the guys. As I said, that battle for fourth place, that battle for 10th place, all still yet to play for, as well as 6th position as well. Didn't really talk about it too much. You got Maledictus, you got TDB, and you got Kunblai, all battling for that 6th position as well in that championship. So obviously Mala picking up that win last week, not here this week. It's really just on TDB and Kunblai to see if they can try and beat the Portuguese driver. But as we're now lining up towards the grid, Hardy just coming into his box now, and we will get this final round underway. You can see the 3, the 4, the 5 red lights for the final time this season, and it's lights out, and away we go. In TDB getting quite a nice start, so with Killer Blue in fact, and Killer Blue trying to line up alongside TDB as well, as Slash also trying to go alongside him as well. But I think Rudy, a very poor start for the Dutchman, already down into 4th position. TDB taking the lead of this race, Killer Blue into second, the two Hasses going side by side through turn 3 and 4, as well as Tivos and Old School going side by side, but Tivos has to hold on to that one indeed. TTG Slash and Rudy though, both side by side, as Hardy into the wall. Knuth as well dropping down, I think at the exit of turn 2, and there's already a virtual safety car. Who was ahead out of the Hasses though? I think Rudy might have just stayed up ahead of his teammate in the end. So Rudy manages to maintain P3, but an abysmal start for the Dutchman. He's now down into 3rd position from that start. TDB just has the opportunity to run away with this now.
Yeah, TDB and Killer Blue flanking either side of Rudy, just did not get away well. Killer Blue looked to be struggling through turn 3, but hung on to that second spot. And yeah, the Haas drivers, Rudy just staying in front of Slash. Hardy just getting caught there up at the back of the field, unlucky for him. Knuth getting caught up as well, but he actually gets a bit of a break with the VSE. Can actually use this as the field stacks up to close up just that little bit, but he'll still be away and have to try and recover in these wet conditions. But he was also very good in the wet back in some of the races prior. Remember that race he won at Monza. So we now, I believe, look to be getting towards green flags. These guys are near enough flat out. Now TDB begins to just feather it a little bit, and now we do go green flags, and Killer Blue got a much better run than TDB, and now he is going to attack for the inside as Killer Blue going for the lead of the race. Knuth is out of the race, heading down the main straight. Killer Blue goes to the front, and he gets in front of TDB. Rudy trying to slip through as well, then he and TDB side by side. He goes across the inside of the track. I don't think the Dutch would be happy without that. Round the outside, back comes TDB and reclaims that 2nd position. Rudy has to get out of it in the end. He lost momentum for them running wide. He nearly runs into Killer Blue, but he does hold on to it. These 3 have shot away. Slash didn't get away so well. Stevan and Tebos side by side. Tebos just getting into the front. Round has gone Rudy's been spun around. I think there may have been contact then as he was in combat with TDB. Crazy stuff here up at the front, and some big names have already bitten the dust early in this race. Rudy round from the pole, disaster for the Haas driver, and he slips to the back. Knuth crashing out on the first lap. He will be thankful that he wrapped up the championship, but that's his scoring streak for the season ended, unfortunately. Hardy out as well, so it's chaos at the start. Killer Blue leads the way. He got the jump on the restart, but I think TDB looks much more confident sitting right underneath the rear wing of the Mercedes, Jack.
The only driver that has raced all races this season and scored every single point as well in this season is now out of the final race of the season. Granted, he has already wrapped up the championship, so fair play to him. But Old School already now up into 5th, going past Stephen for that 5th place. Stephen trying to hold it around the outside in towards turn 1, but has to give that one up. So Old School up into 5th position. He is gunning to hold on to that 10th place. And to be fair to him, I said the wet conditions are more of his forte. Stephen just having a little bit of an oversteer moment coming out of the exit of turn 3 from the centre S's. And yeah, it's going to allow Kumbly to maybe try and go on the pounce on the Alpine driver. But yeah, Old School, these are his conditions. He loves driving in these, as well as TDB, and TDB all over the back of Killer Blue. As you said, that restart from TDB from the virtual safety car just did not play into his favour. Not only that, didn't play in the favour of Knuth, didn't play in the favour of Carmentis. Carmentis had a bit of a spin at the exit of one of the corners on the lead up to the line. So yeah, the man fighting for the 4th place in the championship was Zaldemar, not in any sort of points position at the moment, whereas his rival Zaldemar is in 11th, so he'll at least be getting 2 points and will just extending that gap from Carmentis. So yeah, Carmentis needs to get a little bit of work done if he wants to try and at least overtake Zaldemar. He's about 6 seconds down the road from him. So he needs to have, he's got his work cut out for him if he wants to try and overtake him. Meanwhile, a little bit further on up at the field, Kumbly all over the back of Steban, maybe trying to go for a move around the outside, coming towards the start finish line as TDB setting the fastest lap of the race. Now it is Slash setting the fastest lap of the race. I wonder if we're starting to diet down a bit more with this rain, but you can see Kumbly alongside Steban coming up towards turn number 1. Is he going to try and go around the outside of the Dutchman? Dutchman's just going to have to hold it down the inside for turn 2. Just sort of still side by side. Steban's really got the corner though, but I think Steban might be holding on to it. I was saying that a little bit of understeer from Steban into Kumbly. Hopefully Kumbly hasn't got any damage, but around the outside goes Dutchman. Not only that, Iwan Bakker's now going to try and maybe go for a move on Steban. Nice, very nice view of the back of the car from that Williams. But yeah, Steban had to give that one up. He understeered over into Kumbly, and now you can see Iwan Bakker maybe trying to go down the inside, coming up the hill. Has to back out of that one. Don't want to be sticking your nose in there, because otherwise you could be subject to going around. Saying that though, he's going for it now, coming up the hill, and a little contact between the pair of them. I think that's more on Iwan Bakker than anyone. Steban, I think he was entitled to that corner. Iwan Bakker, again, that's just sticking your nose up there. You don't want to be doing that. And, well, that's the result of it. Steban was running quite well, and unfortunately now down into 13th position. Iwan Bakker now up to 7th.
Yeah, I think Iwan Bakker was trying to drive into a gap that wasn't really there. It's Tope trying to go right outside of Zaldemar. Zaldemar's not going to give him much space there, and I think rightfully so. He's still trying it outside. Zaldemar will hold it, but that was disrespectful almost from Tope, as Killer Blue in early from the lead. Now this is interesting. He gets a penalty for speeding, which is huge from the front, but what tyres is he going to go for? Is it going to be intermediates? You can't imagine the wets are going off. It is going to be inters. Gary's in behind as well, so this is a bold move. He does have that penalty to his name. The rain is still pretty heavy, but Killer Blue thinks that these enters are the better tyres. Scream's going round. Scream and the Ferrari spinning at the centre S. You were watching that, Jack. What went down?
Yeah, so him and Nolan were both side by side. Nolan had the inside for turn 1 and then the outside for turn 2. It was more the case Scream. I don't know really how it would have gone down. I think it was more Scream just understeering almost into Nolan. Nolan did leave him that space on the inside. I don't know whether it was enough space or if it was just too little space, but Scream had that inside for turn 2 and just, as I said, just went straight into the side of Nolan, causing him to go around. The Ferrari now down into 13th position, and the other Ferrari of Tope still trying to find a way past Zaldemar. Zaldemar now up into 8th position behind Ariel Nolan in 7th. Zaldemar, as I said, he's proven his case now to try and keep that 4th place in this championship. But yeah, you are right in saying, obviously, Killer Blue and Gary both coming in a bit earlier, I would say. Although, look, we'll keep an eye out on their times. But the main factor of that, Killer Blue with a 5-second time penalty does not help him at all for trying to win this race. Killer Blue, I think, we've seen him do this countless times now, not only in this race but in other races as well, where he's had an advantage in the lead or has had a massive advantage in a race, and unfortunately just speeding into the pit lane is just going to cost him, well, essentially the win. You can see though, those intermediates are working like a treat. Scream just couldn't really come to grips with coming up that hill towards the start finish line. So a few more guys now into the pit. Scream trying to look down the inside of Killer Blue for this P10 position. Matt Tibos is now just making his way out of the pits as well. You can see him just coming down the line, and yeah, Killer Blue up in front of all of these guys. So I wonder, has Killer Blue played this to perfection? And despite having that 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane, I wonder if Killer Blue has actually gotten a massive undercut, not only on TV but everybody else. There's all Scream having a bit of an off. Has he broken his front wing at all?
Yeah, you can see the end plate then. You see him going off at Ferradura. Yeah, he just lost the rear end coming out of Decino Delgado, and that has massively impacted his race. He's going to have to come in. The intermediates definitely look like it's not by a huge margin, but they do look like the tyre to be on at this stage. There's very little between the compounds though. TDB will dive in. I think you see most of the drivers diving in, but yeah, Scream just making the mistake in the end. Very easy mistake to make in these conditions. Turn 5 is one of those drivers where one of those turns, where you can see the wet conditions making it a lot harder, a corner that wouldn't really be an issue in the dry. Lots of pit stops though. TDB Slash have come in there, Old School in as well as his teammate Zerma. They look to take advantage of the improved double stacking on this game, which certainly is going to be a help for those guys. But TDB, he is getting out there, and I wonder where Killer Blue is going to be in relation to the Alfa Romeo. It actually looks like the overcut may have just worked. I think Killer Blue maybe came in one lap too early, but here we go now on to the race again as Tibos comes out just behind Slash, but out of the race it is TDB to the front, so he has managed to jump Killer Blue despite the speeding penalty, and he goes to the net lead of the race, and that must mean now that he is heavily favoured. The guy behind him has a penalty, and now he's got clear track in front of him, and he can focus on trying to get that gap out and establish a lead at the front, and he now will go on the hunt, TDB, for his third win of the season if he can keep this going.
Yeah, that's massive for TDB getting out in front of Killer Blue, especially as I said with Killer Blue having that 5-second time penalty. His next rival essentially is Slash down in 7th position, or in a net 3rd position, who I think actually had a massive bit of a lockup through or coming down towards the hill. Just heard some sort of tyres screeching and saw his time just drop off a little bit from Killer Blue. So yeah, Slash I think just struggling a little bit more in these intermediate conditions in comparison to the wet conditions, but still running quite nicely in that net P3 nonetheless. Commenton is making his way into the pits. I'm quite surprised we haven't seen Iwan Bakker, Nolan or Tobe coming into the pits as of yet. They know that it pretty much is the intermediate conditions. It's just quite surprising to me that they're still staying out on these wet tyres. These wet tyres could potentially overheat, and it's then just gonna allow the rest of the guys to then make their way up and just cruise straight past them. So yeah, Tope all over the back of Ariel Nolan for that P2 position at the moment. Rudy setting the fastest lap of the race is Commentless as he's just coming out of the pits, coming out into a gaggle of cars from Gary, from Zadama, from Steben and from Rudy, and it looks like Commentless might actually be coming out side by side with Steben. As you can see, Steben now just making his way up towards turn 4, and in fact Commentless just drops back behind Steben. So yeah, the McLaren driver, he is back within it, but he's back behind the Alpine of Steben down in 12th position. So bit of a battle going on between those guys, and as I said, between Nolan and Tope as well, who's still yet to make their pit stop. As Tope having a little bit of an oversteer moment coming down the hill, trying to chase down that McLaren, trying to get up in front of him. I wonder if we'll see these wet runners though come into the pits this lap, because I'll be very surprised if they don't.
Yeah, intermediates definitely the tyre to be on. There was a crossover of a few points where they were pretty evenly matched, but now the intermediates definitely the tyre to be on. As I say that, all of the top 3 continue to stay up, but TDB is pulling back at least a second a lap on these guys now, and he's going to be dragging the rest of them with him, so this is probably disadvantageous for the leaders. Fastest lap TDB, he's going to be going, as I said, it's going to be at least a second a lap on those wet runners, as Kumblai going through on Old School down the straight, has got the inside line and goes in front, so Kumblai snatches 8th position on the road from Old School. Old School will be pretty happy to slot in behind, I believe though. Of course his focus is mainly on the likes of Nolan, Tope, and also of course Rudy, who is going to be right in the mix as well. Rudy, of course, trying to fight back through the field after that early spin. As we've got a spinner, actually, that's Emily Scream that has gone off. Scream, who's had, well, for the most part, a very frustrating season off the road at the back of the grid, and he is a long way off the back of the grid now. But there is still, you can see these guys, I feel, beginning to spread out early, of course. You'd expect it to be a bit more spread out in the wet. It does bring out a lot higher difficulty out of the circuit, but those leaders, they are losing, like I said, over a second a lap now, quite easily. Tope is being held up by Nolan. The wets are past it. You can see the rain is coming down later. All these guys have to come in now, surely.
I'm sure we'll be seeing that.
As I say that,
Bakker still not coming into the pits. Nolan and Tope still not coming in either. So I'm really surprised that these guys are staying out. We might even see Tope go for a move in towards turn 1. He looks to the inside. He sticks his nose down the inside. Nolan's giving him that space on the inside as well. And Nolan maintains that P2 position. Tope, I think, tried that move. But oh my goodness, Nolan having a bit of an oversteer moment coming through turn 3. Tope almost going into the back of the McLaren driver. And now he's going alongside him, coming up in towards turn 4. All of this is just hindering them so much because TDB is now only 3.5 seconds behind these two from second and third position, so they need to make their way into the pits ASAP. As Car Mentalist, I think another one having, another spin coming through. I think that was actually turn 1 this time, interestingly enough. So I wonder if he made some contact with someone because he was battling Steven. As Steven now getting overtaken by Rudy. Rudy going down the inside of the Alpine driver as well. Yeah, gets that move done. Nicely done for the Dutchman. But yeah, I wonder if he made contact with Steven because he was battling with Steven. And that's a very peculiar place, that turn 1, to get wing damage, because there's not really a wall that you can go and hit, especially on the left-hand side, unless you make contact or just have a bit of oversteer.
Yeah, there may well have been a bit of contact because it was a three-way fight between him, Steban and Rudy. But what this does for Car Mentalist is it, unless he gets a safety car, which to be fair is not exactly out the equation, it does essentially almost hand that 4th position in the standings to XL's Anima, who's running pretty comfortably in 11th place. Still all the wet runners are staying out. Maybe they're banking on that, just a safety car, to bring them back through because they're just losing time all the way through now. And TDB is almost catching these guys now, so they've lost at least 5 seconds just running out there on these wet tires. They will have fresher engines, but that's not that big of an advantage really in these conditions, so they continue to brave it out. But NSX TDB, who has managed to establish that gap over Killer Blue now, 2.5 seconds. He's running very comfortably at the moment as the Alfa Romeo. He now reels in the 2 drivers in front as Car Mentalist predictably dives to the pit lane on lap 11 now of the race. So we're just 11 laps in. The wet runner's still going, but now TDB is up on the back of these guys. Now he's got to try and be careful here. These guys are struggling for grip. He's got a decent buffer. The car behind him has a penalty. TDB, if I were him, I'm not rushing these moves. Just pick them off when you get the opportunities. He's sitting behind Tope, but don't go for the move yet. Just sit there and wait. And I think these guys will probably clear the way potentially, or are they going to stay out another lap? Let's see.
Well, let's have a look. I'm keeping an eye on that mini-map with Ilwan Bakker, and yeah, he's still staying out. I don't know why he is still staying out. TDB is now going to start to use a bit more of his ERS. Nolan and Tope still also stay out as well. So things are going to get very, very dicey coming up in towards turn 1. TDB now with the fastest lap of the race as well. And the guys in second and third are going to see that. TDB lunging it down the inside and gets that move nicely done from the Dutchman. TDB, as I said, showing us why he loves running in these wet conditions. And you can see the gap he's already pulled from Killer Blues, about 2.5 seconds as well, using that ERS to his advantage, trying to get onto the back of Nolan. Nolan, though, that straight line speed for the McLaren just very well just keeps him up in front. I don't actually think he used any ERS to try and keep up in front of TDB, but now TDB is going to have to sit behind Nolan coming up this hill. I wonder, are we going to see the Dutchman go for the move coming in towards this next right-hander? Let's have a look as he comes up the hill. He's going to try and go for it. He sticks his nose in there. Nolan leaves him the room, interestingly enough. He's not going to have the outside, and of course he'll have a bit more grip on the outside. Saying that Nolan
he's getting
completely shoving him, almost shoving him out as well. So Nolan going to just maintain this P2 for now, keeps the inside line on the Dutchman, and then just sort of forces him back out as well. So Nolan, massive defensive masterclass from him, and in fact they're both side by side. TDB's going to have the outside for it. Nolan just keeping that defensive on the inside. He's going for the switchback now, is TDB, and he gets the better exit as well. I think that's that done. Nolan now up down into third position. There's a bit of a spinner again, and that is Steven down into 13th, and in fact he's completely lost his front wing.
And a VSC.
Oh.
VSC has come out, so Steban going off the track. Nolan was actually trying to re-pass TDB. These guys are going at it. So unusual for 2 drivers on different tyres and different conditions. Very odd, but yeah, Steban going into the wall. VSC is deployed, and if that had just come out 20 seconds earlier, the wet runners would have been absolutely golden, Jack.
Yeah, so now they're all just going to have to go around. I mean, to be fair, if the virtual safety car is still out by that point, they can at least still make their way into the pits and not lose as much. Of course, Steven's now making his way into the pits with, of course, no front wings. So I wonder if we're going to get this restart done relatively soon, because I think, as I said, with Stephen now into the pits, I'm sure that we'll be getting this back underway very, very soon. So yes, Iwan Bakker still the one that's in the lead of this race at the moment. I think at most he is the one that is hoping that there's a safety car very, very soon. As yet, we're now back underway, and Iwan Bakker, a little bit of a slow restart, saying that, because TDB 7.5 seconds now behind the Aston Martin driver. As Stephen now, when he makes his way out of the pits, he is alongside with Car Mentalist. As in fact, Car Mentalist and Scream, I think, must have had some collision together, because Car Mentalist just got in across turn 2, and Scream pretty much stopped on the track. Yeah, he's got no front wings, so I wonder what happened between those two there. But yeah, Stephen now out of the pits and behind Car Mentalist. So as I said, I think those two must have had a collision somewhere. And yeah, Scream, unfortunately for him, no front wing for the German. This race has gone from bad to worse for him.
Oh, Killer!
Meanwhile, Killer Blue down the inside of Taupe, coming through turn 2, and doesn't leave the room for Taupe. Sorry, through turn 2. That was through turn 1. Sorry, Killer Blue getting that move done through turn 1. And I think I also saw Nolan was also trying to go for a move on TDB once again. And I think he just had to give that one up, because I think he might have ended up going round at that point. Killer Blue now all over the back of Nolan, and I think we may even see a very similar move from Killer that through Nolan through this little sector 2 as well. But Nolan have a little bit of an oversteer moment. He did this in the qualifying session. He's going to try and avoid to do that in this in the race. Otherwise, well, that's his P10 hopes out of the window.
Yeah, I'm absolutely baffled as to why these guys are. I think what they're trying to do, Jack, is they're trying to get through the race on one less pit stop than everyone else. They are banking on the intermediate guys pitting again. Killer Blue straight round the outside there of the Biko de Pato, and that is what extra grip can do. He's centered on top. There's a bit of contact, but really there's not much you could do when you have so much extra grip. So hard to get these moves done cleanly, and these guys are fighting all the way. So that's, I think, is what these guys are banking on then, trying to make sure that they get one less stop in. So Iwan Bakker is going to look to try and maintain that lead, and it's up to the Inter guys to try and find a way through. Nolan does dive in. I think that'll be to the Inters, and he'll hope to get to the end of the race. Slash going outside of Taupe, and Taupe just doesn't have the grip to fight it off. Now Tebos, who's been right on Slash all the way through, is backing up behind the Ferrari, but can't find the way through. Can he find extra grip around the outside of turn 3 to get alongside on the run towards the scene of the Lago? Tebos is going to breeze through, and he goes up to P5, the Ferrari down into P6, so they're sparring away out there on the track, but eventually the extra grip of the Inters is coming through. But I think it probably took us an embarrassing amount of time to figure that out, but maybe the intermediates will not have the tyre wear till they get to the end. So that's the strategy of the wet runners. That's why they were fighting so hard to get themselves back onto fresh tyres that they know can get to the end of the race, while the rest of the guys are going to have to pit again.
Yeah, that is a very interesting point, actually. I don't know why we didn't think of that earlier, to be honest with you. So yeah, I think you are right in what you're saying. The guys that run a set of the wets, of course, is just staying out, because it is technically the rain. It's definitely lined up from what it was at the beginning of the race. However, that rain is still coming down quite a bit. It's not as if it's like early intermediate conditions. If anything, it's still like I would say the wets are not exactly slow, but they're not exactly fast. Iwan Bakker now makes his way into the pits, and I wonder, are we going to see Taupe now make his way into the pits? No, he actually stays out, and Kun Bly goes straight down his inside, coming up towards the start-finish line, as well as Old School now just trying to close up to the back of the Ferrari as well, coming through turn 1. You can just see how much more grip these intermediates have got in comparison to the wet tyres. But yeah, I think you are right. The wets, they're just trying to stay out. I think Taupe's probably going to be staying out for one more lap, just so that he can put on a set of intermediates to go to the end of this race. Rudy going down the inside of Zaldama, sorry, into turn 1 for that P10. Iwan Bakker now emerges out of the pits, and Rudy all over the back of Iwan Bakker, as Taupe now also getting overtaken by Old School. And there's another spinner, and once again that is Scream at the exit of turn 3. Again, Scream just not having that race at all for himself, and it's just a battle with him just trying to keep it on the circuit at this point. He's been lapped pretty much by everyone other than Stephen, who's down in 14th, just trailing behind Car Mentalist. But yeah, been lapped pretty much by everybody at this point, and he's had yet another spin at turn 5.
Oh, I'm just watching Rudy. I'm sorry, but that was a horrible move on Iwan Bakker there. Iwan Bakker was just taking his normal line, heading through the Pinarino, and Rudy just tried to drive himself into a wedge essentially, and has spun the Aston Martin around. He does get the place in the end, but I think the stewards will be having a look at that one because he just tried to force his way into a gap that wasn't really there. But nevertheless, he does get the place on track, and he'll be looking to try and make some progress on his recovery from the incident earlier on in the race. So as it stands, TDP very, very comfortable lead. Tope does eventually dive to the pit lane from those wet tyres, and the question is now, when, if anything, when will the intermediate runners make that dive to the pit lane? We'll see if these guys can keep themselves out there. So TDP leads 5.5 seconds clear. Killer Blue running in second place, but still not out of penalty range of quite a few drivers behind. Just looking at the gaps here, all the way down to Kumbli, they are within that penalty range. Old School just outside of it. Seemingly Scream does actually retire for the race after what was an absolute nightmare for the Ferrari driver. So that brings a close to his Grand Prix in the end. But Slash, Tebos and Kumbli and Old School are right there as well. So that's the battle for the podium, and all these guys could have a shot at P2 if they can try and get up to Killer Blue, who, even though he's running second, doesn't seem to have the outright pace in these intermediate conditions at the moment. But Slash doing a good job of trying to chase him down, doing a good job of holding off Tebos as TDP just sets fastest lap after fastest lap. We've said it all over. He is. Oh, as that Esteban's going off through the Sena del Lago. Will this change anything? Yes, it will. A safety car comes out. Full course caution. Safety car deployed. And it probably won't have much impact in terms of the strategy, but in terms of the track position, well, goes without saying, the entire field now will condense and will come back as one.
That is going to help Car Mentalist massively. And I think Scream is going to be kicking himself now that he may have just seen the safety car come out. Considering that he was about a lap and a bit behind, he could have maybe just caught back up to the back of the rest of the grid. But now, yeah, unfortunately for him, he's now out of the session. But I think we're going to see these top 7. I think we're going to see them make a pit stop. They kind of have to make a pit stop, because if they're going to try and do this a 2-stop, there's no way they're going to take these intermediates to the end of the race. I'm sorry. The only one that I could probably say that may have an opportunity to do that is Zarma, because I know what he's like on tyre wear. But the rest of the grid, yeah, I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of these guys make their way into the pits, chuck on a fresh set of intermediate tyres, and they'll go to the end of the race with that one. I don't know if the rain's going to sort of start to get even harder, or if it starts to lighten up, or anything like that. But if they're going to do it, I suppose we'll see from TDP if he makes his way into the pits, if everyone will follow suit. So let's keep an eye out on the Dutchman. He makes his way up towards the start-finish line. Is he coming into the pits? No, he is not.
No.
So he's staying out, interestingly enough. Is Killer Blue going to do the same? Yeah, Killer Blue coming into the pits, and this is quite smart as well, because he's going to be serving that penalty that he got from speeding into the pit lane. Tibos stays out. Kumbli stays out. Old School stays out. Zarma, are we going to see him come in? Iwan Bakker, of course, doesn't need to come in. He only pit on the last lap, so he's more than likely going to be staying out. Is Zarma coming in? No, he interestingly stays out as well. Nolan going to be staying out. Gary and Tope and Rooney all have pit on this lap as well, so they're also all going to be staying out. And Car Mentalist, I wonder if we may see him just maybe make a quick little pit stop. I mean, he's at the back anyway, so it won't really do him any harm if he does make a pit stop. Just chuck on a fresh set of intermediate tyres and have at least an opportunity of keeping up with the likes of Rudy, Tope and Gary as well. But interestingly, the top 5 not coming in for that pit stop, which means obviously they're going to keep the track position, but they're going to be massively under threat from the guys that have made that pit stop. Iwan Bakker, interestingly enough, has come out ahead of Killer Blue.
Yeah, you can see that jump coming through there for Iwan Bakker. TDG Slash, by the way, did fix the front wing well in the pit lane, and so he drops behind Ariel Nolan, who goes to 8th. Yeah, for these guys, the only reason they must be very confident that their tyres will reach the end. And to be fair, they won't have that much of a disadvantage in terms of pace. TDB, with the pace he's had in this race, if those tyres survive, he's still looking really, really good for the win here. But Tebos now behind him, and now we'll see what the rest of the drivers can do. But overtaking without DRS will not be easy in the slightest. But the pack will eventually bunch up, and as you said, it's a big help for Car Mentalist, who, after a string of incidents throughout the race, was a mile behind. But he's got a lot of ground to make up on Zaudera, who now goes up to 5th through these safety cars. And like you said, you know how good he is on tyres, but he'll be under threat from some very fast drivers behind. So there's an interesting dynamic here, as we're going to get another start underway in just a few laps' time. So TDB leads Tebos. TDB has controlled this race pretty much from the start after getting that lead early on. Now he's going to have to try and do it again. Tebos will try and go with him. Tebos has looked pretty quick in this race, but I think TDB, if he gets off the line well, should be able to get that gap established.
Yeah, I mean, he managed to do it. It got up against Killer Blue as well. Obviously, Killer Blue had a much better restart from when it was a virtual safety car. But yeah, I mean, TDB, he's just, I think when it comes to an actual safety car restart, I think he usually keeps it nice and controlled. He knows when he's going to go, and he manages to, he gets the best exit, shall I say, from that safety car restart. So, and usually builds up quite a bit of a gap from that as well. So, I expected nothing less from the Dutchman once again for tonight as well. Of course, as you said, Matt Tebos, he's looked very, very quick in this race so far. And I think actually is looking on for his first podium of the season, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he's not got on a podium this season. So this will be his first podium if he manages to get on there. But we'll also be seeing Kun Blai potentially back on the podium as well. Last time he was on the podium was when he won out in Austria at round number 8, and we're now on to round 17, and he hasn't been on the podium since. So Kun Blai looking his way, maybe make his way back on this podium slot, as well as Old School. As I said, Old School in these conditions, he loves these wet conditions, the intermediates and the wets, absolutely loves them. And I won't be surprised if we may even see Old School try and go for some sort of move to try and get himself onto this podium for tonight. Again, it will be his first one since USA round 2. He's gotten 33 of 56 points to his name in those first 2 rounds, and he's looking to try and make it a bit more of a redemption for tonight. We were talking about this just before the stream as well. He's had 33 points.
Absolutely crazy. Also, one thing that we haven't really mentioned, Tebos running in second at the moment. If everyone finishes in the same positions, he would actually jump Old School in the standings and get that all-important 10th place. And he's 5 points behind in the standings and is currently outscoring him by 6. So he has that to his favour. So that's something that these guys have got to fight for as well. Nolan a little bit further back. Rudy is still in that fight as well. So we'll see how everything is going to end up and work out. And that fight is a 4-way battle for 10th place in the standings that we've got to keep an eye out for. Zernema with the advantage in the fight for 4th place in the standings. TDB is easily jumping Maledictus for 6th in the standings at the moment. Kun Blai will just about jump in front of his QVR mate as well. So at the moment the standings threaten to do a bit of a reshuffling. As a matter of fact, if Killer Blue manages to win this race, he'll actually jump Packer for 2nd in the standings. But enough about permutations. Looks like we're going to get things back on the way on this lap. So TDB is going to stack up the field from Matt Tebos. When will he go? He's got a long straight to the side, and TDG Tebos will try and react to the move for the Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, let's keep an eye out on this Alfa Romeo and see when he is going to go. He's just letting that safety car get away from him as much as possible. And we'll keep an eye on when this Dutchman is going to go. Just taking it nice and easy at the moment. We had this safety car restart again, very something similar from last season. We got it again this season. TDB going to try and go as late as possible. Matt Tebos not weaving anymore. He's going to wait to see when TDB is going to go. He's almost alongside him. TDB has stopped weaving. He's still going very slowly. And now he goes away and he got a very nice restart. I don't think Matt Tebos was sort of capitalising on that as much as he could have been. But there's a lot of things that are going on. Speaking of, Zardama and Iwan Bakker both go side by side through turn 1 and turn 2. Zardama's going to hold on to that one. A little bit further down the field, Nolan, Gary, Slash and Rudy all going at it. Slash and Rudy basically touching wheels of each other, and now Slash, Rudy and Gary almost free abreast coming up in towards turn 4. Slash is going to have to go around the outside of Gary if he wants to try and get anything done. Rudy's going to hold the inside in towards turn 4. The two Hasses are still going at it, and I think Rudy might just be squeezing his teammate out. Yeah, Slash has a little bit of an oversteer moment into his teammate and has to back out of that one, almost turning right in front of Car Mentalist, just going in between the count of him and Taupe as Killer Blue gets the move done on Iwan Bakker, and Slash was trying to go for that move on Taupe in towards coming through the tight hairpin as well. Killer Blue and Iwan Bakker both still going at it. Killer Blue going around the outside. Iwan Bakker's now going to have the inside coming towards the end of sector 2. He completely dives it up the Mercedes driver's inside, but does not manage to get that move done once again. Killer Blue, very nice move around the outside, and now chasing down one of his fellow XL drivers of Zardama, and a little bit further down Gary and Taupe as well through the final corner, both going at it as Taupe trying to get a better exit out of this final corner. Is saying that Slash is also with them. They're almost again 3 abreast coming up towards the start finish line. Gary, I think, is getting a bit nervous without all of this going on, because he saw all of that going on behind him. He's just having a nice battle with Taupe, but yeah, Gary backs off from that. Taupe goes across him and takes the P10 a little bit further up as well. You can see Nolan and Rudy both going at it for P9 and P8, and Nolan just has to back off from that one. So Rudy, despite having a bit of a dodgy restart, shall I say, gets himself back up into 8th position and is now chasing down Iwan Bakker and Killer Blue. Killer Blue still all over the back of Zarma, and whilst with all of that's gone on, TDB has built up a gap from Tibos of 3 seconds in 1.5 laps.
He has exploded away as NSX TDB, the grip he had and this timing he got. The rest of the field is stacked up and he has gone away. Slash and Gary side by side, heading through the middle sector at Biko de Pato. Gary trying to get back on the inside. Slash has not given him much space. Gary has to carry that one, and they're all scrapping away in the midst of the order. Slash, as you mentioned, nearly completely wiped out Car Mentalist on that last lap. What was a very scary incident. Nolan in the McLaren looks to be struggling though in these wet conditions. He's got Taupe all over the back of him. Emily Taupe looking for a way through as it stands right now. Ferrari chasing down McLaren as they head up to the line. TDB 3.4 clear, completely dominant as he has been all night long. You can see still the Ferrari chasing the McLaren, looks inside, but it's just a feint. Nolan will hang on to that 9th place. Up in front, Zaunima looks to be struggling slightly in these conditions as well. Killer Blue has got up behind him, and so Killer Blue will try and look for a way through as it stands at the moment, but TDB's lead 3.5 seconds. Tibos from Kumblai from Old School, those three look to have a bit of a break on Zaunima, but the rest of the field, nothing to separate them pretty much. They're all fighting away, and this has the possibility to end in tears, but also the possibility for a lot of action between all these guys. They're all stacking up behind Tibos, and they're currently all looking for a way, trying to outmaneuver each other and make their way through.
Yeah, you can see Killer Blue really wants to get through on Zarma. It's just not giving an inch is the Red Bull driver. He wants to try and make sure he's at least confirmed up ahead of Car Mentalist, but saying that, Zarma still has the opportunity of jumping Killer Blue. Of course, Killer Blue, I know he's trying to maybe jump up ahead of Car Mentalist, but he's only 11 points up ahead of Zarma himself. So if something happens to one of these two guys, or if something happens to Killer Blue, then Zarma has the opportunity of jumping up ahead of him. Killer Blue, a little bit of an oversteer coming out of that final corner, and now just still holding on to the back of the Red Bull driver. You can see Zarma just through that second sector, just towards the end of it is where he's struggling a lot, as well as Kumblai trying to go around the outside of Tibos in towards turn 1. He's going to have the inside for turn number 2. The Brit's just going to have to give that one up, and nicely done from Kumblai. And Killer Blue now trying to hold it down the inside of Zaunima coming through turn 3. Zaunima's going to hold it around the outside. Killer Blue just going to try and go down the inside in towards turn 4, just drops back behind the Dutchman, but now going to try and go down the inside of him in towards turn 4. A little bit of a wheel just a little bit sitting in there, both giving each other the room, both still going side by side of each other. Very nice battling between the Red Bull and the Mercedes, and I think Killer Blue just going to hold it around the outside coming up the hill. Zaunima's going to give him that room, but has to back out of that one. Exceptional driving between the pair of them, and even then Rudy trying to go up the inside of Iwan Bakker. Again, it's another battle going on between these two guys after having that collision. Funny enough, through this exact corner here, but Rudy manages to, or just has to hold onto the back of the Aston Martin driver for now, but going to try and go for a bit of a switchback on Iwan Bakker, but I think he's just going to have to back out of that one. I was saying that, keeping his right, left front wheel onto the rear right of Iwan Bakker, goes off the circuit. Knew that was not the thing that he needed to do. He's trying to play this a bit too risky in my opinion. He needs to try and do something. It's all Nolan, massive oversteer moment. I don't know if he came into contact with anyone, but Taupe just going around the outside of him, and now Slash also trying to go down the inside of him, coming from towards the pit lane, and also Gary trying to go for that move on Nolan. There's so much carnage going on, Dan. A lot of battling going on, as Slash now down the inside of Taupe. Taupe just going to have to keep, manages to keep that position, and now Nolan is just keeping up Gary. Car Mentalist is now going to go for that move on Gary. So much going on, Dan.
These guys are pushing the limits in the rain. Here's Kumblai, who just got to P2. Penalty, time penalty for the Williams man. He's got to try and establish that gap, but Tibos looks to be struggling. Old School still spread up behind, and you can see Zaunima and Killer Blue going at it. There's battles everywhere at the moment, Jack. They're all over the road looking to try and find that way through. At the back of the field especially, Gary covering off Car Mentalist behind as Nolan continues to struggle and slide down the order a little bit. Was fighting up at the front of the race, but strategy strategy. The safety car just hasn't worked out in his favour as Commentless. A half-hearted dive on Gary. Gary's not having any of that. Squeezes him right to the inside of the track. Of course, one driver at the moment not going to finish in the points if everyone does stay on the road, on the black stuff to the end of the race. But is everyone going to stay on the black stuff with how hard these guys are fighting all the way through the field? In particular, this fight between Ewan Bakker and Rooney, and the Haas is coming back again at the Aston Martin, heading into the centre S. He's going to dive it from deep here, but I think he's going to get a bit of space from Ewan Bakker. He's trying to compromise the Aston Martin's line to get a better run through up towards the Cena del Lago. So here we go, Rooney with the run on the back of Ewan Bakker now, using that battery, using that toe, as Ewan Bakker covers to the inside line. Now is the outside going to be viable for the Haas? He breaks very, very late, but I think it's too late. He runs it wide, and the Aston Martin just holds on to the place then. So these guys, in what is admittedly a bad-tempered scrap, going at it for 7th and 8th, and Emily Tope is right on these guys, looking for a way through as well. So the field's beginning to break into brackets and battles all the way through the order. Killer Blue still get back through Zaunama. Zaunama doing a cracking job of holding that 5th place, even though he doesn't look all that comfortable in these conditions. Battles galore, but the one constant has been TDB 6 seconds clear now, Jack. A dominant display, and this driving in the wet, if he can see it through, has to be one of the drives of the season. He's been impeccable tonight.
Yeah, 100%. TDB just putting on an outstanding performance in these wet conditions, and I won't be surprised if he does manage to just conceal that one off for his final race of the season. So very nicely done from TDB. Old school though, look how close he is to the back of Tibos. You said Tibos has been struggling a lot in this race. Old school could be on for a P2 finish with Kunbai having that 3-second time penalty up in front. He's 1.8 seconds or 1.9 seconds, sorry, behind the Dutchman. So he just needs to try and get past Matt Tibos, because Matt Tibos, you said, I think is just holding him up ever so slightly. Both of the one Red Bull getting held up, one Red Bull is holding up, because Killer Blue is the other one that is trying to get past Zaunama as well. So Zaunama just having a little bit of an oversteer moment coming through turn 5, and Killer Blue just almost going into the back of Zaunama, just didn't almost brake and almost just gone straight into the back of the Red Bull. That was very, very close from the Mercedes. But now allowing all of this battling going on with Zaunama and Killer Blue, Ewan Bakker is now back within a second of Killer Blue. Of course, there's not going to be any DRS because of it raining, because of the rain. But at the same time, Killer Blue, he needs to get past Zaunama. This is the only way that he can do it. He needs to get past him. Otherwise, he's basically going to be content with P6. He needs to get past this Red Bull driver. Thing is, as I said, Zaunama, he's not going to give this one up easily. It's just whoever's going to be better on the ERS management at the moment. Zaunama is the one that's better on the ERS management, as Killer Blue using a bit more of it to his advantage to try and get this move done on Zaunama. He's not, of course, going to get it done into towards turn 1. However, turn 4 could prove different. He tried it once there before. It's just whoever gets the better exit coming out of turn 3. And it looks like Killer Blue is the one with the better exit. Saying that, though, Zaunama just managing to keep in front of Killer Blue for now. Of course, no DRS is going to be enabled. So Killer Blue, unfortunately for him, looked like he got the better exit, but that straight line speed was in favour of Zaunama, as a massive oversteer moment from Killer Blue through turn 4. All of it is now going down, Dan. And yeah, as I said, this is far from over. We've still got 8 more laps left to go, and everyone's racing almost just like it's on the final lap.
It's fantastic stuff all the way through, and the rain as well. It takes a tremendous amount of skill to drive this track in the rain, let alone with all these other cars around you. We've managed to keep it relatively clean, which is great to see. Killer Blue just can't quite get close enough to Zaunama. Zaunama's quick enough in the crucial areas of the track, and he's quick enough down the straights to maintain that, and he's got a lot of battery, so it's a tough one for Killer Blue to make, even if with the better tires he has more outright speed. Of course, keep an eye out for those intermediates on the top 5, potentially struggling and labouring near the end of the race, but they've managed to hold on to it very well. Further back though, Rooney is the man on the move, and Ewan Bakker is early to defend that inside line into the set S. Rooney breaks very late. He's going to get covered off, I think, and Round almost does a great job of saving it, cuts across the inside and nearly loses it again. Top on the inside now, wheel to wheel with the Haas, gets his nose in front through turn 3 now and gets ahead. Rooney trying to fight back on the run down towards the Cena del Lago, opening up that inside line, breaks incredibly late, the door is shut, but eventually he does get through. Top is forced off the road, forced off the track, and Rooney snaps the car. They're both on off the track. Somehow they've saved it, but Slash gets through on his teammate. Now he's going inside of Taupe, side by side with Ferradura, side by side, into turn 8 now into the Pinarino. Through goes Slash. He gets 2 places in 1. It was another bad tempered scrap out there between Taupe and Rudy. They came together, and I have no idea how both those guys managed to keep it out of the barriers.
That looked scary. How he managed to get that one held, both of them. Taupe looked like he just came back on track as normal. Rudy almost goes veering into the wall, but managed to hold on to that one. That was scary stuff. Is there something else that's going on down in the background?
Rudy's made another error there, that's coming out of Jun Shao, and round the outside goes Nolan to take that 10th place. Rudy has been losing place after place on this lap, hand over fist, and he's dropping back. Is he going to try and fight back? Garrett looking inside then. Rudy again diving inside of Nolan, another late move. He gets enough space to operate, but Nolan hangs on to that 10th place, makes a mistake though, out of turn 3, and Rudy is trying to fight back again. He's been in the wars tonight, has the Haasman from pole position, but he won't be able to get through on Nolan. He's had a disaster in this last lap, so Nolan gets in a 10th place and holds it for the time being. Up at the front, Teros under a lot of pressure, and behind Rudy, has he gone round? He's in the wall as the Haas driver, and a run of events, a run of disasters finally comes to a head, and Rudy, unfortunately, his fight in the race is over. He's lost his front wing, and Rudy now out of contention in this Grand Prix.
Yeah, again, it's the same place that he had that with Taupe as well. This time on his own. Gary almost followed him through there as well, but just managed to hold on to that in the end. Gary now up into 11th, and Carmentalist now into the points himself. Rudy are now also picking up a 3-second time penalty for his troubles. Sort of similar to Scream, it's gone from bad to worse for Rudy in this race. A little bit further up the field though, Matt Tibos, he's dropped out of that 3-second range from Kumblai, which means that Old School have also dropped out of that 3-second range. He now needs to get this move done on track if he wants to get himself on the podium. Matt Tibos going to try and hold it down the inside to keep that covered from the Red Bull driver. Old School's going to have to just go a little bit bad, or just compromise his line ever so slightly, but to get a better run out of turn 2, coming through turn 3. He looks like he's got the better run. He's going to use a bit of his ERS now as well. Tibos is going to go down the inside to keep that defensive from Old School. Old School's going to try and go around the outside of the Mercedes driver. They're going to give each other enough room, but I think Old School's just going to have to back out of that one for now. Tibos just maintains that P3 position as Rudy has retired from the session in the pit lane, so every driver now that finishes will be scoring points. And you can see a little bit further down the field as well, Carmental is trying to go for that move on Gary coming up towards the hill, but just has to back off from that one, has the McLaren driver. But yeah, interestingly enough, Matt Tibos now is the leading train for this P3 position. Kumblai has completely gotten away from the rest of the guys, kind of like what TDB did. And interestingly enough, Kumblai, he's catching up to the back of TDB slightly. He was about 7.5 seconds on the last lap. It's now down to 5.9 seconds.
Yeah, I think TDB hasn't had the best lap, so Kumblai's pace in the rain is undeniable. He's been flying. They're all beginning to really stack up behind Matt Tibos now. But here comes Old School. Look at the overspeed of the Red Bull. He's going to blast round the outside, and Tibos must have damage because he's gone to the pit lane. And Tibos bows out of that P4. Maybe, I think he still had a fighting chance of holding some of those places, but in the end, no. He's elected to give up all of them, and now down in a P12. And he goes for wet tyres, actually, so he's banking on them, but I'm not sure if they'll give him much extra grip. We will see. He'll be a long way off the back of the field, or a long way at the back of the order. So now, race resuming, and certainly Carmental has got a good run on Gary to the outside into Decido Lago, gets in front then of the Aston Martin, and the Aston Martin fights back, wheel to wheel contact between them then. Gary forcing Carmentalist out onto the car and maintains 10th position, but the McLaren is fighting back around the outside, 2 wheels on the grass into Ferradura, and Gary stays in front. Another heated battle. It seems like all the battles are personal tonight. Gary holding on to P10 in very feisty fashion from Carmentalist, who'll be looking to try and get through. There's another yellow, that's Tibos spinning straight away on those wets. They don't look to be giving him the grip, and what was such a great race for Tibos, like so many other races this season, it's just fallen apart in the last few laps.
I wonder, with Matt Tibos making that pit stop, he must have been struggling on those intermediate tyres exceptionally. So I wonder if the rest of the guys that are on these intermediate tyres now, especially Kumblai because he's on the oldest set, I wonder if these guys are in puncture territory. They've done 26 laps on these intermediate tyres. Killer Blue on 14 laps on these inters. And you can see these two Red Bulls are the ones that are, of course, 3rd and 4th position. They are struggling immensely in comparison to the other guys on the intermediates behind them. So I wonder if these guys are all in puncture territory, and well, they're just trying to make it to the end at this point. They've got 3 more laps left to go, and I'm pretty sure that they're hoping that this race couldn't finish sooner enough. But yeah, at the moment, I think these guys are all under pressure, not just from the guys that are on the fresh intermediates, but though their own tyres as well, because I think they might be going to, could potentially be getting a puncture very soon. And even further down the field, Carmentless and Gary still both going at it. Gary trying to get a bit of redemption from last week from Carmentless, and Carmentless completely runs him out almost runs him out, shall I say, coming up the hill. Gary just giving him a little bit of a nudge in the back. So this is going to be some feisty battling going on between the Relentless and the XL driver, and Gary just has to stay behind Carmentless for now. He needs to pick this right. Of course, I said there's some aggressive driving going on between these two guys. I think very bad temper between the pair of them, but yeah, they are both going at it, fully going at it, shall I say. And it's just whoever's going to be the one that comes out on top of that. Kunblai picks up the fastest lap of the race, and you can see that, well, despite being on 28 lap old tyres, setting the fastest lap of the race, they're probably still as fresh as a daisy for him.
I think the conditions are also improving. So the rain just looks a little bit lighter than it was before, and so these guys finding more pace, but Kunblai doing a great job on those old tyres then, keeping them carrying. I think we could see another fight again between Carmentless and Gary. These guys so close to each other, 1/10 between them. Carmentless immediately to the inside line towards the Sierra del Lago, then Gary trying to force his way through. He's into the back of the McLaren. These guys, they had a hard battle at Suzuka as, Gary nearly loses it out of turn 4, and Carmentless pulls away. But yeah, those two have just been going at it, and to be honest, going at it a bit too much in my opinion. There's been a lot of weaving between both of those guys then, and some hard moves, but nevertheless it is Carmentless from Gary in that fight at the rear of the field at the moment. We're coming up now, so close to the final lap, the final tour of the season, and we're going to see how some of these fights are going to unfold, because Zerma's far from out of the woods. Killer Blue has been hounding him all over, but still cannot get through, and now Zerma with a full battery to deploy and try and get that gap back out. Then we're on to the final lap for TDB. He has blitzed the field here in Interlagos. Great drive from Kunblai as well, getting out of that penalty range. Killer Blue, is he going to try and make a last gap move towards Zerma? He breaks very late in a T1, not quite late enough though. Zerma just calmly covers it off then. Killer Blue cutting the inside of turn 2, trying to get every advantage that he can, but Zerma, I think, has enough in hand. Slash as well, trying to get to Iwa Bakker. That doesn't look like he's going to go through, as Gary now and Carmentless, they're going to go to war yet again here, but I think Gary is going to be too far away. Carmentless is so fast down the straights. We saw it when he's behind him, we saw it when he's in front, but Gary trying to get through at the moment. Slash is trying to attack Iwa Bakker. They're all going all the way at it. Slash tries to dive on Iwa Bakker. That move is not going to come off, as Gary forcing his way down the inside of Carmentless. And Ferradura almost identical to the same move Carmentless pulled on the Aston Martin. We've got to look now to the race lead, because this man has been imperious tonight. It's NSX TDB, who hasn't had the best of seasons, but nevertheless will come over the line for his 3rd victory of the season. NSX TDB with the fastest lap to boot. Does Kunblai snatch it off him? Let's see over the line. He does, and he will get P2. Old School will get the podium, a hard fought podium. Will go the way of Old School 3000, and it will be 10th place in the standings for him. Zerma just holds off Killer Blue. Iwa Bakker just holds off Slash to the line then it's Nolan, Tope, and a run to the line. Gary will just hand off Carmentless, I think, by half a car length. Gary from Carmentless in one of the most aggressive battles I've ever seen. Tebos so unlucky that his race unravelled in the last few laps, but he will settle for 12th on the road. TDB, Kunblai, Old School, that is your podium for the final race of the season. We'll try and work out how that affects all these things in terms of the championship as well. But yeah, what a race to cap it off. What battling between everyone in the wet, and almost a DRS train for the podium without DRS. But TDB, you have to say, a flawless drive. Never looked like losing that race all the way through the 36 laps.
I think TDB must have gotten extremely bored. He might have turned on the stream midway through, because there was he had nothing that he really had to do. He just drove his race. He was perfectly fine. Didn't realise everything that was going on behind him was just absolutely insane, to be honest with you. That battle between Killer Blue and XL Zadamar, that battle between Gary and Carmentless, with Slash, with Iwan Bakker, with Rudy, everyone that was going on there. was just absolute. Yeah, despite it being in the wet conditions and the intermediate conditions, that was still an absolute cracking race in the end. And it was TDB that ended up taking that out, or came up on top with that one, with Kun Lai back on the podium and Old School back on the podium as well. As I said, first 2 rounds he was on the podium, didn't pick one up since. Kun Lai hasn't been on the podium since round number 8, is now back on the podium. TDB, since he was last on the podium, was at round 10 at Portimao, where he ended up taking the win in that one. So, yeah, I think a return to the podium for all 3 of those guys, and I'm sure they'll be very happy to see themselves back on the podium. Zaldama from 14th on the grid, up into 4th, with Killer Blue down into 5th, unfortunately for him. Imran Bakker in 6th, Slash in 7th, Nolan in 8th, and unfortunately for him, Old School is going to maintain that 10th position, in the standings, and Zaldama will maintain that 4th position in the standings. Emily Tope in 9th, with Gary in 10th, Carmentis in 11th. A massive battle between those two, and probably going to be a bit of scrapping going on in the Discord soon as well. Tibos running out the final points, and then of course our DNFers of Rudy, Stephen, Scream, Knuth and Hardy. Again, both Knuth and Hardy within that first lap as well, so very unfortunate for them to not be finishing, but wow, what a battle that was. I could not believe that. It was just absolutely insane.
Yeah, there was a lot of very, very hard racing all the way throughout the field. For the last time this season, I will get all of our podium guys in here to discuss not only this race, but just the season as a whole, I imagine, between everyone. So, yeah, we'll get their thoughts. I'll try and get these guys in as soon as we can, and yeah, we'll hear from them. I think in the meantime, I think we have something, well, maybe you could do that, but we've got something that we want to talk about, an event that we've got lined up for next week.
I certainly do. So, just whilst we're waiting for the podium guys to get in, as Dan said, next week, of course, we are at the end of the season for the League of Europe, but next week we have got the fourth even. Sorry, it's not the third, it's the 4th edition of the 24 hours of F1. Of course, this time we've also got 2 charities we're doing this for, so make sure that you guys are tuning into that one. It's going to be over on twitch.tv/24 of F1. I really do hope to see a lot of you guys there for next week, because I do. It's an event that I really do enjoy setting up, as well as being able to participate in that. So I really do hope we see a lot of guys in there for that for next week. A lot of guys from the League of Europe, from all divisions, shall I say, are driving within that, as well as everybody else in the League Racing community. So I really do hope we see a lot of guys throughout that as well for next week. But without further ado, of course, now that we've done all of that, we shall get on to our podium interviews. TDB back on top for that final race of the season. I'm sure that was quite boring for you, wasn't it? Because as soon as that second safety car came in, you just kind of breezed off.
I mean, it was a lovely race. I mean, I really enjoyed this track. The tyres were amazing. The setup was really good. It was very bad in the dry. I did 5.9s in practice, but with this wet setup, I genuinely drove a good lap there, and it was like a 6.8. So I was surprised I got P2, and I made it work in the end, which I'm fairly happy about.
Fair enough. And as I said, like that second safety car restart, obviously I know you had Matt Tibbles behind you. Was that, when you seen that sort of go straight off, was that did you know that you had the opportunity of just being able to get ahead? Because as I said, within the first lap you got about 3 seconds up ahead of the Mercedes driver.
I think they went side by side into turn 1, and they lost 2 seconds already, and then I gained another second on the lap. I mean, the safety car restarts here are really annoying, because just before the final corner, the safety car goes away, and there's no way you accelerate coming out of a corner. So the only thing I could have done was wait until the line, and I saw Matt Tibbles go a bit forward, and then he had to back off, otherwise we would have gone past, and I just went straight on, which worked very well, and it gave me the gap, and I was able to set a few fastest laps after that. And at one point I stopped setting fastest laps and pushing, because otherwise I would have probably crashed, but those tyres were amazing. The setup was very good, and I really enjoyed it.
And as for your season, of course, overall, there's been a sort of a few ups and downs. I suppose as of recent, there's been a few more downs and ups. But I mean, you're now back on the podium. You've had this is now your third win of this season. Are we going to be hoping to see a lot more from this, either if you're in Division 2 or Division 1 for next season? Because you are definitely, you should be, shall I say, up there, if not in Division 1. So, are we hoping to see a bit more of this for next season?
Oh, if I even get D1, which I think on raw base, on certain tracks I'll be D1 base, but on certain tracks I'm definitely D2 base. But that's up for the admins to decide, of course. But if I'm D1, there's no way I'll win a race. I mean, a few big names are dropping from Division 1, but there's still so many quick guys up there. And I have a few people that probably new people will join, like that are quicker as well. So I can't imagine myself winning D1, but in D2, if I stay D2, I'll definitely make some more wins. But the championship, definitely not. I'm not consistent enough for that.
Well, not with that attitude. But Dan, have you got any questions for our race winner for tonight?
Well, I think I'll ask all of you guys a pretty similar question. Just when you look back over the season, how do you reflect on maybe just run us through your emotions throughout the season and the ups, the downs, and race by race. Just tell me, what were your general feelings throughout the season and how do you look back on it?
I think the beginning of the season, I was getting used to the game still. This game really doesn't suit me, or it didn't suit me for the most of the time, and I was really struggling with it. And when I joined NSX, I won the first 2 races, which my base was. I really understood the game a lot better because of that, and my base got a lot better. But all the tracks after the 2 wins were either very bad tracks for me, where I didn't have a chance of winning either way, or just me bottling fully on my own. Which I think at Austria I just spun on my own in the race. I was leading with 8 seconds there as well. I just spun on my own. I think this season it could have been a lot more, but I'm happy how it's ended.
Fantastic stuff. Yeah, 3 wins, nothing to sniff at in the slightest. So I guess I'll hand it back over then to my partner, Mr. XLJ Cole. I guess we'll hear from our second place finisher and someone that really impressed me tonight, actually, QVR Kumblai. Take us through it.
Yeah, so Kumblai, again, another one back on the podium. I was saying it earlier, round 8 was the last time you was back on the podium, and that was the win at Austria. You're now back in here with us for, I believe, a 4th time this season. What a race that was for you, because again, that must have been, it was quite a race of, I suppose, attrition. I don't know if that would be the right word for it, but as soon as you got past Tibos, again, it was like TDB. It was just nice and quiet for yourself. The start of that race, though, that looked very intense. How was that for yourself?
Yeah, it was a very intense race. I didn't practice, so I just went in with no expectations and just to have fun. And during the race, I got more confidence in the car. I made some good moves, so it was really hectic. Yeah.
Fair enough. And yeah, I mean, as I said, that second safety car restart, you was up behind Matt Tibos. You've seen everybody else, I don't know if you may have seen everybody else sort of pitting behind. Was you intending on making a pit stop as well, or was it always your intention of just staying out the entire time? Because those tyres must have been so close to getting that puncture.
Well, the tires are fine. Were fine actually, because you told me to higher the tire pressures. But I only once was going to pit when everyone pitted in front of me, but they didn't. So I just thought, let's take a slight risk, and it paid off. So.
Fair enough. And obviously, as I said, throughout this entire season, with TDB, there's been a lot of ups and downs. You two, I would say, were within that title fight at the very beginning of the season, as well as Old School within that as well. And obviously, I'll ask him very soon. But you guys were all in that title fight at the beginning of the season, and then it kind of just sort of dropped off midway through. again, you've picked it back up since then, but are you maybe hoping for something similar, or are you going to try and go for this title again for the next season? Because as I said, I think you, both of you, in first and second tonight, have got the ability to do so. Are we going to see maybe a bit of a title fight between the pair of you for next season, you reckon?
Could be. I don't know yet if I'm going to sign up for next season, but probably will. But during the half of, I think midway through the season, I lost a bit of motivation and to play the game, so I didn't practice anymore. And now it's getting a bit better, so I don't know if I'm going to be there next season, but if I will be there, I will go for the title.
That's what I love to hear. Dan, any questions?
Same sort of question that I asked TDB, really. Just how do you reflect on this season, the ups, the downs, and just what are your general thoughts on what went down through the last 17 races?
The beginning was decent. I think I had some. Yeah, I didn't have really good form, but some races were good and some races were bad. Yeah, and then now at the end it's picking up a bit again, but. Yeah, that's all I can say, actually.
Okay then, well thank you very much, and I guess I'll hand it back over to Jack once again, and yeah.
Can I also just thank the admins and the great commentators of the league to make this all possible.
Thanks very much. I mean, I don't take credit for being an admin, but yeah, thanks very much, man. Really appreciate that, and great season, and just go enjoy yourself. I know it'll be a stressful day for you tomorrow. There's no doubt about that. But I guess
Max is winning.
Okay, then we'll see what happens. But yeah, back to you, Jack. Then I guess we'll hear from our third place finisher and the man who has won the all-important pay-per-view for this season, Old School 3000. Take it away.
Well, Mark. As I said, I was saying this at the beginning of the stream. It was the absolute pay-per-view for that 10th position. You know, we're trying to scrape at everything that we possibly can, and you're the one that's managed to take that 10th position in the end. It was very close to 9th, actually. If Commentless had actually managed to knock off Gary, there could have been a chance that you might. Well, if you would have won the race, actually, they probably wouldn't have been able to. But it was very close in terms of you and Gary, shall I say, in that standings. We'll talk about the race for tonight, though, because as I said, you started down in 7th. I think you dropped off ever so slightly, but then picked it back up again. That race, as I said, there was so much chaos going on. How was that race for you?
Oh, I've just finished toweling myself down from the wet and wild conditions there in Interlagos.
Not the sweat dripping off, no?
Yeah, no, it's the sweat as well. It's more mingled and merged with another bodily fluid. But there we are. But yeah, no, it was very, very. It was intense. People were flying everywhere. I see Gary and Aidan committed a fantastic offence. Thank you, Gary, for stopping the sweat for the constructors for 4th. Really appreciate that. Checks in the post. But yeah, I don't know. It was just all a bit wild. Matt with the his tyres were dropping off more than my life. I think realistically. But yeah, no, yeah. It was just really strange. It was, and I have to say, this is a classic. This is almost like Ocon and Alonso, right? You know, Ocon wins the race, and everyone's like, "Hey!" He's like, "No, it was on Dan." So Damer, if it wasn't for him fighting like an absolute lion, he kept Killer in his absolute. I hope Killer one day escapes from that Dutchman's back pocket. One day.
Okay, fair enough. I was actually going to ask you about that, but you've already taken that away from me anyway. So I will ask you the same question that I asked him live a minute ago about you've seen everybody else in front and behind make that pit stop to go on like a fresh set of intermediate tyres. Obviously 5 of you didn't, and it looks as if it paid off. Was you anywhere close to like a puncture territory as well, or was you just or was your tyres perfectly fine and you knew you were just going to get them to the end?
No, I think I was on about 55%. I was pretty decent on the tyres, to be fair, which is quite surprising. Dan's obviously he's always very good on them.
Yeah.
We weren't that close to. I mean, I said, should we split? And I was like, I had a bit of a gap where I'd have probably just come out behind Dan, but overtaking there is wild. Like, unless you get a massive. I mean, the only reason I overtook Matt is because I think he used all of his battery. So yeah, I don't know. There's some odd decisions out there, but I didn't really get it because it said it could dry up as well. I know it didn't, but I don't know. In all seriousness, I know I joke about people ruining their miserable lives all the time, but I feel like a few people actually did this time.
And then, again, I'll ask the same thing that I did with TDB and Kuhn as well. You know, at the very start of this season, you picked up 2 podiums, you was the championship leader, and then you had a string of 4 out of the points, and then it started to pick up for you a bit gradually then, and obviously now back on the podium as well since the second round in USA. Are you maybe going to try and have like another good start? Probably if it's Bahrain at the beginning, you would. But are you going to try and have like another good start like you did at the beginning of the season, and try and maybe keep it a bit more consistent? Because I know you're usually one that is better in, I would say, a second half of a game's life cycle than a first game's life cycle. I suppose it's all different types of pacing, but the second game's life cycle is where everyone's more on like an even playing field. Are you going to try and go for it like you did in Division 3 last season and go for it next season for Division 2? Or even, I'll be surprised if you're in Division 3 next season, but if you are in Division 3?
Oh, well, you were waffling there, weren't you, about like me in the D2 title fight? They were 2 absolute fluke podiums, let's be real. No, I had a bit of change. I had some family circumstances that are going to change halfway this season, so I didn't practice tons. The last 4 or 5 weeks I was just kind of poor, to be honest. But you know, I don't know. I'll go where I'm put. You know, there's a lot of quick people like Brendan. You know, I'm about as quick as Tin Can. You know, for me and him to swap divisions probably makes sense in some senses, or be in the same division. You know, whatever. Like, I don't care. I'll find a challenge where it is. If you just said you'll finish a place behind Gary and come 29th in the league, because I come 41st in the league last time. And I want to, you know what I mean? I've improved by 12 spots, that's the way I look at it, so I'm on a 30th. 30th, don't say 29th. But yeah, no, you know, in all seriousness, 3 podiums is the best reigning D3 champion has ever had. Yeah, yeah, there's some results that could have been better, but overall, it's been enjoyable. It's been lovely that me and Dan managed to get probably our joint best result in that sense, and beat Keller and Tibos and beat Carmen and Nolan. So absolute perfect way to win. And I just want to say, like, Dan's a brilliant teammate, and me, him, and Nia have a great laugh in those parties. And yeah, definitely missed that. So no, and thank you guys genuinely. You are you know, a bedrock of this. You're as much as part of this division as anyone else, and thank you ever so much for your time over the weeks.
Appreciate it as well, man. And one final question from myself: are we going to be seeing the old squad for next season as well with you and Dan once again, or are you two going to be going your separate ways? Are you going to be doing the Fast and Furious 7 to go in your separate ways?
I don't know. No one ever tends to hang around. So take of that what you will. You know, they all tend to leave after one season. There we are. I don't know. It depends what divisions we're in. It depends on all sorts, doesn't it? So. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be against if we're in the same division. I'd 100% want to, but yeah, we'll see. Fair
enough. And Dan, any questions for Mark for tonight?
Hard to say, because Mark basically told us all his life story there throughout that interview, so there's not really much for me to say, to be honest. So yeah, just well done.
When the chips are down, the old man still wins.
That is very, very true. Well, congratulations to all 3 of you, of course, for tonight as well. And yeah, that rounds off Season 6. Dan, have you got any final words for, just to round off the season as a whole?
Yeah, first of all, vote me for commentator of the season, and
wow.
In all fairness, could I quickly say something? Just want to thank you guys, Jack and Dan, for both commentating this whole season. It's been a pleasure to watch all the races back, and I think every D2 drive and all the people watching it live have really enjoyed it. So thank you guys for that.
Oh, what's with all this wholesomeness? Well, thank you very much, man.
I was expecting a lot more shit talking, shall we say, when this was happening. But yeah, no, it's been very heartfelt. Sorry, Dan, what were you going to say?
I always love doing D2. I mean, D2 has been, honestly, it's been a staple of my last 2 years in life, which is a little bit sad, but nevertheless, nevertheless, it's been an absolute pleasure yet again. I'm not sure if I'll be back in this division next season, but I guess we shall see. So yeah, thanks for having me for yet another great season, and yeah, looking forward to the future as well. So to every single driver in this division, thank you. You put on a great show. Back to you, Jack.
And yeah, that's exactly what I was just about to say. You know, it's been exceptional. You know, usually I would say I'm in Division 2, not exactly performed in Division 3, so I'll probably be staying there next season if I do sign up again. But hopefully I do get the opportunity of Division 2 again for next season. That's probably something we'll talk about over the off season, shall we say? But yeah, I can't wait until we get this new season underway to try and get, well, just to see who's going to be where as well. Massive thank you to everybody that has turned up for the season. Whether you've raced week in and week out, or if you've only just sort of started within Division 2, you know, it being able to just at least have, I would say, I think at the minimum that we had was 16 drivers in this grid for one race. That's saying in comparison to any other sort of leagues out there, you know, caused a little bit of controversy with that one, but yeah, it's been a pleasure, and hopefully, you know, I'll be here for this one for next season. Thank you to everybody that has tuned in throughout the season, from myself and Dan as well. We do thank you. It is massively appreciated. Like I said, make sure you are tuned into the 24 hours for next week. I said at twitch.tv/24 of F1 at 1 PM GMT or at UK time. Thank you to everybody that has tuned in for tonight, and I do hope that you enjoy the Christmas break. And yeah, that's it from me. Take care.